Thank you, John. And now we'll have Lesli Ellis give us an overview of water planning in Larimer County.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Lesli Ellis, and I'm glad you asked the question about slides because I'm going to fly through some of this, and I've got a lot of numbers and facts and figures, so that way you can find them later. So I am, as Commissioner Kafalis or somebody introduced me earlier, a service area director here at the county, and so I have the great honor of working with multiple departments on a water plan, and I'd also like to acknowledge a few people who are here, Dalen Figgs from our Natural Resources Department, and Mark Peterson from Engineering, and Lori Kadrich, who wasn't here earlier when Commissioner Kafalis introduced her, have all been part of this effort so far, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it here, but it is very much a multi-departmental project. We're also working with the Emergency Operations Center staff and others to identify various risks and vulnerabilities. So what I want to do today is just give you a brief overview of what we've been working on and where we're headed, and then hopefully if this is a topic of interest to you, please let us know, and we'll keep in touch with you and tell you when there are opportunities to be part of our water planning effort. So here at Larimer County, we have a few different plans and policies that lay the groundwork for our interests in water planning. And our county commissioners are very supportive, as you can see, in working on efforts like this, but also in supporting projects and funding to do work around water in Larimer County. We also have in our strategic plan, the 2019 through 2023 strategic plan, several objectives that address improving long-term planning for water supply and infrastructure and incorporated in unincorporated areas, and promoting water sharing strategies to preserve agriculture and sustain water supplies, and then a whole suite of water conservation and water quality policies and goals in our comprehensive plan from 2029. And so we use those as a backdrop when we start to look at issues around water and water planning. What's kind of unique about Larimer County versus, say, many of the cities in the region, we don't provide water. We don't build infrastructure for water, but I'll tell you a little bit more about the kind of the water system in Larimer County in general. So we wanted to make sure that we were addressing aspects of water that are in our lane to work on, and that where we think we can add value or make a difference, but not interfere with the work that the water providers and other systems are doing in Larimer County. So we set out to do some foundational work in 2021 through 2022 to basically get a better sense of what is going on in Larimer County in terms of some of our existing conditions and our systems. And so we had work to look at water conditions through the lens of water supplies, uses and demands, and vulnerabilities. And we worked with a team of consultants, Brendel Group and Logan Simpson, and I'm actually using some of their slides here today. But they did a lot of the work, and we had funding from Sonoran Institute and Department of Local Affairs to put together some initial information about what's going on in Larimer County, and then reach out to the community and get a little bit more input from those who are interested to say, what are some of the goals, what are the issues, what are some of the goals that we should be working on. And then this was really set up to be the foundation to then do more and move forward with a broader planning effort, which is what we're starting this year. And so there is an existing conditions report. It's available on our project webpage, and that's noted up here. So if you're interested, you can go and see the whole report and download it. I'll go through some of the high-level input that's in there, but this summarizes where we are with a number of factors related to water and water systems in the county. We had some limited, we didn't have a lot of time or a ton of funding, so we really relied heavily on data that was available. We didn't do original research, so we used publicly available plans and provider plans and data from the state of Colorado water databases and so on. And then we got input from a number of the water providers and other interested parties in the state to develop that water plan. So I'll just go through some of the aspects of it and what we know about Larimer County. But like many of the Front Range communities and that you saw on Dr. Tracy's map, we're rapidly growing. We're on the Front Range. We're expected to grow to 536,000 people approximately by 2040. What's maybe unique about Larimer County versus some of the other counties along the Front Range is that most of that growth will go in cities and municipalities and in what we call growth management areas in the county. And again, we don't provide water, but there are a number of incorporated areas that have water systems, and then a number of districts that I'll talk about shortly. And you can see on the map here, we're very much a rural county, largely in public lands and parks and so on. And then along the Front Range, where most of our municipalities are, that's where the growth management areas are, with the exception of Estes and some of the smaller communities up near Red Feather. And here you can see the map of what we call our growth management areas and the municipalities that largely have the water systems and that are separated in some cases by open spaces and buffers, but otherwise are centered along that Front Range corridor. And so in terms of water supplies in the county, we are just to get into some of the findings from the state Colorado water databases and provider plans, about half of the water in the county originates from the Colorado River. And so that, of course, raises some questions about reliability and water supply. We've seen a lot of the diversions increasing in the county and expect to see that continue, and that puts some pressure on available water and environmental flows. We are still seeing a decline in agricultural land, which underscores some of the needs around water sharing arrangements and some of the pilot projects that we've seen in the county. Water service is very distributed, so you can see the statistics here that we have about 124 water providers and almost 11,000 homes that are reliant on wells. A good part of the county is self-supplied water or small districts, and so that raises some questions about, what does that mean during times of drought or times of emergency? And then depending on how developed communities are, water providers are estimating, quite a bit of growth in water demands in the future. And so some of them, a smaller amount, closer to 25%, some of them might see, almost doubling their supplies. One of the aspects of that conditions report is it does go through a summary of each of the water providers and a lot of the factors such as their land use authorities or their service population, how much they expect to serve their water supplies and their yields, and then some of the vulnerabilities as well. And then the report also starts to go into the different system risks and then later the county-wide risks. In terms of some of the system risks, we're finding that there's a need for more infrastructure. Most of the planned projects in Larimer County are around improved raw water storage. Many of the municipal providers in the county, so City of Fort Collins and so on, have more senior and diversified portfolios, and a lot of the districts tend to be working to try to diversify their portfolios. We're also seeing that there's a lot of, as Dr. Tracy talked about, a lot of pretty complicated contractual agreements. There's definitely a need for more infrastructure investment and consistent data. From a countywide standpoint, you can see some of the factors here. I see Michelle standing up, so I'm going to whip through my last two slides. Okay, so our study certainly doesn't capture all the vulnerabilities and risks, but you can see some of them here around reduced water availability from droughts, fires, climate change, what we're really all experiencing in the West, concern about Colorado River water being curtailed under a compact call. There's relatively low reuse potential without gray water programs. And then there are already service delivery limitations that we're seeing where there's some service districts that are imposing moratoria and questions about future service around water. This slide just highlights a few of those other factors too that I think we've touched on before, but I'll just highlight a few here that I haven't said already. Housing affordability, I think we find that has a nexus with water supply requirements, certainly agriculture, watersheds and rivers and their health, and then water supplies. So as far as where we're headed next, so this year, starting right about now and then through the end of next year, we have engaged another team of consultants to work with our team in the county and the community to work on a water master plan. And that will help us develop a more detailed roadmap of actions and areas that we should focus around achieving different goals. This will go through the end of next year, possibly even into early 2025. And we want to make sure that we do something of value. We want to stay in our lane of not being a water provider again, but at the regional scale, we think there are aspects that we could focus on as a county to address things like environmental flows and water sharing, water conservation, educating folks about water, leading by examples on various fronts. We are aware of and don't want to step on the toes of some of the other groups that are doing work, but potentially add to or leverage some of the work that other organizations in the community are doing. And then as we move forward, we will be taking a bit more of a watershed approach and looking at risks and reliability. And this is just a hypothetical example up on the screen, but that'll be a core part of the plan and the work that we do. And so we've got this, 8-step schedule lined out for the next year or so. And if you're interested in this, please go to that web page address that I showed earlier, and you can find more information on that. And if this is something that interests you, we do hope that you'll contact us and let us know that you'd like to get more information and be informed about the project and may have information to add to it and participate with us. So thank you very much.
All right, it looks like we have a question right in front. Let me get the mic on. There you go.
I'm just wondering who decides if there's enough water to approve a new housing development?
So I'll talk about it from the county's perspective because every community has their own process and their own way of looking at it. So what Fort Collins does and Loveland does are different. In the county, we require somebody who's coming to the county to do a subdivision or have basically to do a subdivision to come to us with a letter from the state water resource department saying that they have water, or come to us from a water district saying that they have a supply of water, and then they're eligible to move forward in their process. The problem that we're starting to see is that there are these districts now that have moratoria where they're actually saying that they don't have water after all. And so we do have some property owners who've bought lots who are finding that that's a bit of a challenge. But in general, the county requires some evidence that there's water before we issue a permit for a subdivision, or we give approval for a subdivision and then give permits for building permits.
I know you got a question earlier, so I'm going to go to someone else that is. Yeah, let's go right back that way. Thank you.
You said that one of the findings was that there wasn't enough raw water storage. Can you give an example of what raw water storage is?
Irrigation, lakes and reservoirs, basically, or reservoirs for water supply for drinking water and so forth. Yeah.
Will the county be in favor of additional storage for small entities? Additional reservoir storage?
So the way the county doesn't necessarily propose storage facilities. Yes, right, exactly. We have a process to review those. So typically, a water district or an entity will approach us with a proposal to build a facility or expand a facility, and then they go through what we call our 1041 review process, and then they're issued a permit if approved through the 1041 permit process. Does that answer?
Here, hold on. Use the mic so that people.
Yeah.
Do you foresee county government being supportive of additional small reservoir storage projects within our county?
Yeah, so if a project is proposed and it meets the criteria of the permitting requirement and it, is able to demonstrate that it minimizes the environmental impacts and it has the benefits and it's addressed all the criteria, then we've had 1041 permits that are approved. It's a decision ultimately of the county commissioners. It goes through our planning commission and then our county commissioners, and they review it on the basis of all those criteria.
I think we probably have time for one more question, but we can ask more questions at the end. So if you have questions that we didn't get to, please hold on to them. Go ahead.
Approximately 50% of the water that's treated for municipal use gets used for outdoor irrigation. And during the peak summer months, that rises to about 70 or 80%. So that's a tremendous investment by all the water providers. Are there things that the county can do from a land use management and regulatory perspective that might be able to limit the outdoor water use and perhaps stretch it so that we don't have quite such an increase in water demand as our population grows?
I think that might be a rhetorical question, John, right? Because you know the answer probably, but as a member of our planning commission. But yes, there are, the county can put landscape standards in place as one possible way forward. Again, what we do applies to the unincorporated area of the county. So doing something on a more shared or joint basis with the other districts and municipalities probably would have, better bang for the buck. But yeah, there certainly are things we can do.
Thank you, Leslie. And as we get ready for our next presenter, Commissioner Kristen Stevens has joined us. So I just wanted to say hi, Kristen. Thanks for being here.